right. So we just have the one follow-up item here today. Did you walk the stage for your incoming engineering students?
Nope.
Yeah, this may actually be long-term. I'm not sure that this is really something to be followed up on, but it's the only thing we had. So.
In this action item, as I'm looking back on this, thinking about this action item should have been put in your calendar to walk the stage for incoming freshmen in the middle of July or at the end of July, right? Like it should not have been before the next episode. It should have been for that. So I'm going to take a mulligan here, and I'm going to say, if I can do this one by like the 1st of August, we're winning, but I did not do this one. So I failed.
That's okay. Speaking of incoming freshmen, we got our first college acceptance letter.
Hey, good deal. Congrats to you. I always congratulate the parents too, because this is so much more of a parent thing as it is a student thing. So congratulations, Mike.
Yeah, it's exciting. Yeah. I think we still don't know exactly what we want to do next year. That's okay. We can take a little bit of time to figure it out.
Yep.
But I think so there were a couple schools that we applied to that were local, and one of them has a pretty decent business program. That's what Toby really wants to do, I think, is business. And nice. It's like 20 minutes tops from our house.
Nice.
So drivable, very open campus to commuter students. In fact, when we went to the opening like preview day, they had a couple of sessions you could choose from. There were like 4 total. One of them was what's life like as a commuter student. So the fact that they're prioritizing that kind of tells you something.
Yep.
But it's getting real.
Why business, if you don't mind me asking? Like, does he want to start his own company? Does he want to just know more about running a business? Like, what's his motivation there?
Yeah. So I gave him homework before I left for Craft and Commerce, which we talked a little bit about in the pro show. Spoiler alert, I got to ask James Clear a question about how he uses AI in the writing process. So if you want to hear more about that, become a Bookworm Pro member, bookworm.fm/pro. But I gave him homework before I left for that conference to think about a name for an LLC, because we're going to set that up this week.
Very good.
And then he's going through some YouTube like account manager training stuff. I think that's what he's going to do for me over the summer.
Nice.
In addition to the podcast editing and stuff like that, just kind of as a trial run, see, if it's something that he likes to do, we can continue to do it. It's kind of like the perfect part-time job. But yeah, I also don't want to just push my son down the work with me route, because that's what happened to me.
Yeah. I get that.
So yeah, we're trying to figure stuff out. But getting the first official acceptance letter, from my perspective, was like a big sigh of relief.
Yeah.
I didn't doubt that he would get in, but we're homeschoolers. We do things differently. Colleges seem to prioritize ACT scores and stuff like that, which we don't do. Side note on the ACT stuff. I took that when I was a junior, and I did really, really well just because I happened to be a great test taker. How do I know this? My highest score was in science. I got a 32 in the science.
Okay.
And I'm like, sweet, I'm good at science. I'm going to go become a chiropractor. I'm going to be a bio major. Yep. And I almost flunked out of school that first semester. I am not good at science.
So I am the opposite of you, and I am a terrible long test taker. So SAT, ACT, like the state assessment tests, all that stuff. I was terrible at them because like I'd get, 20, 30 minutes into it and I'm just like, I'm bored. This is dumb. Like, I don't understand why we have to keep doing this.
It is dumb.
So I even like had to train myself to like, okay, you must stay focused for the entire session. Like you must stay focused for the entire session, but whatever. I mean, I ended up doing okay.
Right. Yeah. So yeah, I guess I feel like we got options now. Probably always had options, but it's official.
Yeah, it's great. Congratulations and tell him I said the same thing. If or he's going to listen to this. So Toby, congratulations.
Yeah, there you go. All right. Want to talk about a book?
Yep, we should probably do that.
All right. Today's book is Unreasonable Hospitality by Will Guidara. And it's really a book about the restaurant industry. There's a lot of business lessons to be gleaned from Will's experience. It's a lot of shorter chapters, though, which sort of chronicle different points in his journey to grow this restaurant, which was 11 Madison Park, to the best restaurant in the world. And I don't know how you felt about the restaurant stories. I thought they were pretty interesting, but I can totally see a world where those actually don't do anything for somebody who's reading this. I was kind of curious. Did you like that approach?
Yeah. So first, I'm going to turn the question back on you. Have you ever worked food service?
I have not.
Okay. So I've worked at a country club in food service. I've worked at a 6-pack shack in food service where basically it was making like subs and little salads and stuff. And this is definitely not the food service that I'm familiar with. Like, this is like fancy schmancy, like $1,000, multi-$1,000 meals where you go in and they just do whatever they're going to do. And it's like, wham, bam, fantastic. Thank you very much. Like, I have no connection to this food service. So the only food service I have connection to is like normie food service. Like, oh, we're going to go to like the local country club and just have like a steak or, have whatever it is. Or it's even like just making a sub for you. That being said, it was interesting to like think about what he was trying to do in the context of food service. So I didn't realize when I came into the book that it was like the stories and all of the background was going to be his experience as essentially, what would you say, Mike? Like he's worked almost everything, every role in the kitchen, or maybe not in the kitchen, but every role in a restaurant, from running food to tables, the whole way up to being the manager and kind of the owner of a restaurant. So he's got this entire range of experience. It's just in kind of a different context than I was with, but I liked all the stories. Like, I didn't mind them all. They were all relatable. He didn't like blow me out of the water with like, well, I just can't connect with that. I mean, I said multiple times as I'm listening to these stories, I would never spend that much money on that. Like that's just crazy to me. But I said, I can understand that people do. So, okay.
Yeah, I have no experience in this world either. He's talking about 15 course dinners.
Yeah.
That's the number that they used at the end of the book.
Yep.
So yeah, this is a world I know nothing about. Sounds great. I would love to try it sometime. But yeah.
Ironically, like, I don't think I would. Like, I think I would feel weird the entire time we're eating this dinner. I'm much more of a, just take me to Texas Roadhouse kind of guy, right? Like, like, oh, that's my steak kind of place, or In-N-Out Burger or something like that. I would feel very uncomfortable during this meal. Even if somebody else was paying for it. It has nothing to do with the money. It's just like, this is not my scene. I don't know what to do.
Sure. I mean, I would probably feel that way too, but it is an experience I would like to have at some point in my life. Did you ever listen to that Nathan Barry show episode that I mentioned?
No, I forgot. I lost that one in the thread of life.
Okay. Yeah, no problem. But that was interesting. That actually came on my radar before the book did. And that is Nathan Barry interviewing Will Guidara and Brian Canlis. That's not the person that he was a partner with in the book for the vast majority of it. But that podcast episode was really interesting, and there were a couple stories in there that I thought were absolutely fantastic. So actually there were some details. They talked about some of that stuff in the book itself, but I feel like some of the details got lost in some of the stories that were told on the printed page as opposed to those guys on the podcast. So for example, one of the things that they talked about was this big barrel of super expensive whiskey that they had in the bottom of the restaurant. And they sold one glass of it to a business guy one time. He's like, I need your best whiskey. And they sold it, and they're like, we feel bad that we did that. Like, it just feels not right, feels cheap. And so they changed it so that it wasn't for sale, but they gave it away.
Yeah.
And basically, if you were willing to stand up in front of the whole restaurant and say something vulnerable, then you would be able to take a shot of whiskey from the barrel. And so they're able to create all these incredibly emotional moments with humans in the restaurant as they work through that. They also mentioned in the book, they talked about the coat check thing. So on the podcast episode, they talked about how with the coat check, and also the valet piece, like someone pulls up, they remember their car, they keep an eye on them the whole time that they're eating so that their car is ready to go, their coats are ready to go when they get up to leave. And not only do they have the things ready to go, but actually their coats have been warmed by a fire.
Yep.
So that
That's
they're
crazy.
like nice and toasty when you put them on before you go out into the New York winter. That's super cool. And I heard those stories in the podcast, and I was super intrigued by that approach. It's interesting because those two very brief descriptions that I gave you probably sum up the majority of the lessons to be learned from this book. But also there's a whole lot more in here, and there's a lot of nuance. So I honestly have no idea. I told you via text today, I have no idea how to approach this episode because there are no parts, there are no sections. There's 20 chapters, an epilogue, and then an I appreciate you section at the end. Mm-hmm. And it's basically story principle, but not real hard defined sections like that. They kind of blend together a lot in a very compelling, entertaining story that's woven through all these 20 chapters. So I think we'll probably just power through them. Some will be longer, some will be shorter.
And in relation to the 20 chapters, like this is probably the smoothest choppy book I've read. Meaning like there's 20 chapters and they're all kind of independent of each other, but at the same time it flowed well. Like there wasn't oh man, now we're just talking about some other random topic or some other random topic. It was a really kind of a skillful way that he hit 20 relatively short chapters in a smooth way. So I thought that was good. But I think you're right. I think we got to hit them all, and then we'll just hit some harder than others, and we'll skate over some of them.
All right. Well, let's do it. Let's start with the first one here, chapter 1, Welcome to the Hospitality Economy. And I don't even know how to introduce a lot of these because there's a lot of story. I didn't write down notes from the story. And
Me
also
either.
the story, even though there were different stories in each chapter, like I said, they're all kind of interwoven together. So I had a real hard time figuring out where one story stopped and another one started.
Yeah, let's intro the listeners just in case, right? So basically the general overall story is Will's journey from Cornell into the restaurant world, and then his experiences navigating through the restaurant world and the people he would meet, and then what they did at this one restaurant and what they did at this other restaurant. And like somebody gave him an opportunity to do this one thing. And it was all of that. And then I would say mixed in with that were life lessons. Oh, and my dad taught me this, and this person taught me this, and I learned this thing because I failed at it. And like, that was one of the things I really appreciated about Will. He was like, I did not do that right, and it taught me X, Y, Z. Like he's a very, at least is seemingly in the text, he's a very humble guy, willing to admit when he screws up. But then he's also like somebody who's done some really, really like impressive things. So it's like, that's the whole general gist. Like that's the background of all this story.
Yes. And in the first chapter, I think this does actually introduce the overall arc of the narrative pretty well, because you're sort of jumping in the middle of the story, but also it's hitting on the biggest emotional point, which is that they've been growing this business. They got invited to this celebration where they picked the top 50 restaurants in the world.
Yep.
And so just being selected to go to that event is pretty great. You're one of the top 50. But then they got picked as number 50.
Number 50.
So they're the first ones up on stage, and they're completely embarrassed, and they're like, we gotta do better. We want to be number one.
I try to put myself in that situation and go, would I be embarrassed or would I be like pumped that I'm one of the 50? And I honestly don't know. And then like, this is where the abstraction to the really fine dining world removes me from being able to like resonate with how he's feeling. Cause it's like, I would think I got to feel pretty good about this. I got invited to be one of the top 50, but he's like, nope, it was the most embarrassing thing ever. And I hated every minute of it. And I just wanted to run away. Like, I just really wanted to run away.
Yeah, I think I can see both sides, because the way that the thing is set up, they don't know ahead of time. So the further you go, not knowing what position you take, the better off you are. So they go from 50 and they work their way up to number 1. And I think there probably is a little bit of, hey, look, we were invited to this event with all these big names, and then you think you've arrived, and then right away you realize that you are at the bottom of the totem pole, the lowest one in the room. So what that does is it doesn't say, we've done terrible, we got to blow everything up. But that's when they're like, we got to do better. And then they come up with this idea to focus on service and this whole term of unreasonable hospitality. That's kind of where it comes from. Yeah.
It makes me wonder, why would you do 50 restaurants? That's a lot of restaurants to incorporate in one thing. Like, I mean, top 10, top 20, but we digress. But I agree with you. Like his whole point is to introduce us to this idea of that hospitality was making people feel good, and then that we wanted to take that and turn the dial, as Spinal Tap would say, we want to turn the dial to 11, right? And we want to make that as unreasonable as we can. How do we make people feel good in as unreasonable a way as we could? And that's kind of what catalyzed them to change the way they ran the restaurant and think about it differently, which, I thought was a good opener. Like it hooked me.
It is a great opener. Chapter 2 is the next one, and that is making magic in a world that could use more of it. And this one, the big takeaway for me is that people will never forget how you made them feel, and that whatever you do for a living, you can choose to be in the hospitality business. So this is already starting to lead into the one action item I think you could possibly take away from this book if you are not in the restaurant industry. But we'll get there when we get there.
So I'm in chapter 2, and I'm already starting to think about this book differently. And this got stronger and stronger as we went on. So I'm not going to say it for the next 18 chapters. But it's interesting that they titled the book, and I say they because not only is it Will, but it's also the editor and the publisher and all that stuff. Like that all gets, they had to have wanted to tie into his restaurant world more than the rest of us, that aren't in the restaurant world with that hospitality idea. Because I'm thinking through here, what he's describing like these unreasonable experiences. We're going to give people unreasonable experiences. And like even what you said, people will forget what you do and what you say, but they'll never forget how you made them feel. Like we want to give them this experience that's so good. And I kind of think this book would have been better titled as, Unreasonable Experiences. It probably wouldn't have sold as well. But like I think that's what he's describing here, and that's what he's pushing us to do is whatever world you live in, how can you give people these experiences that just knock it out of the park and make it just the most unforgettable thing they've ever had. So it's like I had this feeling, and it just gets stronger the entire time we read this book. So
yeah, and there's a description in this chapter which I really liked about hospitality giving you the privilege of joining people as they celebrate the most joyful moments in their lives, and the chance to offer them a brief moment of consolation and relief in the midst of their most difficult ones. Mm-hmm. And that's a pretty vivid description. And I think it's pretty exciting too, when you consider how you can actually pull that off.
Yep.
All right. So the next chapter 3 is the extraordinary power of intention. And I like this chapter just because of the topic here. They mentioned that intention means every decision from the most obviously significant to the seemingly mundane matters. And seems kind of obvious when you hear the definition like that, but also it's real easy to not take into consideration the smaller stuff. Well, let's just worry about the big things. I kind of two minds on this, because I have to fight my perfectionist tendencies, and I think there's a lot of nuance to this. If you're working with someone, for example, intention doesn't mean that you're micromanaging and nitpicking every detail because you want it to be perfect. But also maybe it means that you're creating the SOP so the person who's doing the work knows exactly what you're looking for, that sort of thing. But there is a fine line here, I think, with intention and perfection. And that'll come up through the rest of the book as well, but want to call it out here.
Yeah, Mike, one of the things he states in this section is hire great people, treat them well, invest significantly in their growth, and they will take care of the customers. And I think about, like, where do we often fall down in that process, right? Like, where is that? Like, do we hire great people? Do we treat them well? Do we invest significantly in their growth? Like, and I don't think there's one right answer here. So it's like, I'm not looking for the right answer, but I think if you ran whatever organization you are operating through that, and you just ran it through are we hiring the best people we can hire? Are we treating them the best way we can treat them? And then are we encouraging them to get better every day in whatever way it makes sense for them to get better? It's hard to think that your organization doesn't just take off. And it makes me think of, we read a book a long, long time ago. I can't remember what it was, but it talked about A players and superstars. And I mean, for the life of me, I can't remember what it was, but it classified different types of employees. And I just think about that here as where, if I go into an organization and I think man, this organization's not running very well. I can clearly tell they are not killing it. And I think I wonder what it is. Is it one of these three buckets? And there might be more, but I thought that was a really powerful section. And as a leader in an organization, it's a really clean way to ask, am I doing these three things? And then I bet you 9 times out of 10, you're going to get good experiences out of that if you do those three things.
Yeah, absolutely. You ready to go to the next chapter?
I am. Yep.
We will talk about that A player stuff later on.
Okay.
That's one of the things I wanted to chat about in chapter 8. But chapter 4 is lessons in enlightened hospitality, which I guess, just to close that loop, enlightened hospitality from the previous chapter is prioritizing the people who work there over everything else. But also, this is where it gets a little bit, it's not prioritizing just the people that work there. That is part of it. That's the lead in. One of the best examples of that, by the way, I'll call it out now because I'm not sure we'll get to it when we get to the later chapters, but they created this position, the Dreamweaver.
Yeah.
Which was really cool. It's just basically go blow people's minds and we'll pay you to do it. This chapter, they talk about how the first example of when they blew people's minds, which is when they went to feed the meter for them while they were dining. And that seems like such a small, simple thing, right? But it really can have an outsized impact. And that's the thing. The big takeaway from this chapter for me is the statement, all it takes for something extraordinary to happen is one person with enthusiasm. Yep. I think that's super cool.
Yeah, I don't know if we'll get to it later or not, and I also don't remember where all the stories fell in the book. They described the people saying, they've eaten all over town. They've eaten at all the best restaurants. The one thing they were disappointed about was they didn't get a street hot dog.
Oh, the hot dog. Yeah, I remember that.
And they went out and they bought him a hot dog and they chopped it up and replated it and whatever. And I was like, man, just think about the impact that has and how awesome that is to say, we went to this restaurant, the meal was great, 15 courses, whatever, but they brought us out a hot dog at the end. And it was just the thing I liked out of this chapter specifically was this give ownership to others, because I think this is really hard to do, and I don't think we do it enough. And I especially think in our culture nowadays, we don't put responsibility and accountability on people enough and say, go do this and own it and make it amazing, right? Like your job is to go make it amazing and then coach them through that process. And I would love to see. Society might be too, grandiose or might, be too dramatic, but I'd love to see us do this more, where we are encouraging people to take ownership of whatever world they're responsible for. Walking the dog, because I see this with my boys. Like I give them the smallest little task and I'm like, hey, you guys own this. Go do it and do it well. And you just see them light up. Like they get excited. Mike, was this the section where this was the beer guy and they gave him ownership over the drink section? I can't remember if this was it or not, but he's an example in this.
Don't remember. Yeah, I think that might be a little bit later because there was another part of that with the coffee that I didn't want to talk about in chapter 10.
Yep. Yeah, okay. So, and like you said, with it being 20, it's hard to like keep track of all of this stuff. So as you read it, you'll just remember these like really cool stories and how things connect. So don't let us forget our ability to not remember where things are. Don't let that dissuade you from the book. I'm ready to go to 5.
Yeah, this is a really hard book to just talk about in the bookworm format. But
it is.
Yeah, chapter 5 is restaurant smart versus corporate smart. And I think the big takeaway for this one was the conversation that he had with his dad. And he asked him this question: where do the highest paid people work? Is it in the restaurant or is it in the corporate office? So this is sort of where he's switching from being in the kitchen to actually owning the restaurant. Not that he owns that particular restaurant, but the thing that can keep people from walking into something like that is, well, that's a lot to figure out. I get overwhelmed by all the details, and it just feels like this huge heavy lift. I don't know if I'll ever be able to wrap my head around this stuff, but made the point that you need to be able to understand all parts of the business. Everything is figure outable if you put in the work. And there's also a point that he makes here, which I think is pretty profound. There's no replacement for learning a system from the ground up. You got to know how the system works before you try to optimize it.
I had a buddy coming out of school, and similar to you, his dad ran a company, and I was like, hey, what are you going to do when you graduate? And he's like, well, I'm going to go and I'm going to be like the low man on the totem pole for like a year and a half. And I was like, yeah, but you've got a degree and you got an engineering degree. Your dad's the president of this company, like blah, blah, blah. He's like, nope. He's like, we start at the bottom. He goes, and then my benefit is I'll get to jump all those levels. He's like, I won't have to stay like at the bottom and work my way up level by level. He goes, but they want me to start. He goes, so I'll do exactly what the first year guys do all the time. And I was like, what a good way to build rapport, build culture, and, oh, by the way, teach you what these guys do every day. Like this is what you're training these guys to do. My big takeaway out of this chapter was the 95-5 rule. I don't know if you remember that, Mike.
I do, but I jotted that down, I think, in a different spot. I don't know. Or maybe that note just got lost. I don't know. Well, I do remember taking that note, though.
He mentions it multiple times, but like the first time is in chapter 5. And I started this one and said, basically, so what you're going to do is you're going to stringently manage 95% of something. And then for the 5%, you're just going to be outrageous with it. And if you stringently manage the 95%, you don't have to worry about the outlandish 5% because you've managed that. And he's doing it in context of like budget. So what we're going to do is like 95% of our budget is to the T, right? We are hitting it, nail on the head every time. He goes, and then that 5% where we just spend a ridiculous amount of money on that experience that we shouldn't really spend. He's like, we don't have to worry about it because it'll pay for itself and it'll make up for it. And this is like probably one of my like most memorable aspects of this book, and the one that I want to try to incorporate. It doesn't raise to a level of an action item, but I want to think about like, okay, how do I do 95-5 in my job, in my life, in vacations, in different things? Is it possible for me to do 95-5 in there? Again, I don't want to make it an action item because I think it's gonna be hard to do and it's gonna be like ongoing, but I do think I'm gonna remember the 95-5 rule.
Yeah, I do like that rule as well. The basic principle is like you manage the heck out of 95% of stuff, and then the 5% is where you spend lavishly. Mm-hmm. And I think that's a pretty cool concept because what it gives you permission to blow people's minds in the restaurant industry as you're thinking about this unreasonable hospitality. I guess the tendency maybe could be to push that beyond 5%, and that's what you need to
Yep.
be careful of.
That's where your manager keeps it on the rails, right?
Yeah, exactly. All right, chapter 6 is pursuing a true partnership. I really don't have a whole lot
Me either.
here. This is where he wants to go in with his business partner, and basically, you need to be able to see on both sides of the walls. One point that he makes, and you should run toward what you want instead of away from what you don't want.
That's my key takeaway from chapter 6.
Yeah, me too. All right. Well, we'll move on to the next one then. Chapter 7 is setting expectations. This is where he mentions another book, The 1 Minute Manager by Ken Blanchard and Spencer Johnson. Have you read this book?
I've not. Have you?
Yes, I have. This was required reading when I joined the digital marketing agency. And I'm trying to figure out how to summarize this. The 1 Minute Manager, basically, in the title, it's talking about how those individual moments, the 1 minute interactions you have with people, that's really where the managing happens. It's not in the regular 60-minute meetings that you have. But I honestly didn't like that book all that much. I thought it was pretty basic. In this chapter, he talks about how leaders' responsibility is to identify the strengths of the people on their team, no matter how buried those strengths might be. I think that's absolutely true. You need to invite your team along. It's a leader's job to give feedback all the time. I mean, this is basic management stuff.
Yep. Yeah, I thought the same thing. Like the basic management stuff, make your expectations clear, make corrections in private. I see that all the time where you praise in public and you reprimand or correct in private. Do this, here's why, and then did they do it? The daily 30-minute meeting. So this was, in my mind, just an overview of here's some management things that I've learned, and let's go on. Let's move on to chapter 8.
Yeah, well, one of the things that he mentions here, which I think is going to pop up again, maybe in chapter 8, is to make sure you give the people who are trying hard what they need to succeed. I had never heard it framed that way, but that's absolutely the case. Mm-hmm. You could take the more general approach. You need to give all your people what they need to succeed, but he doesn't frame it that way. It's you should see who you've hired and who's actually trying. Make sure that those people have what they need to succeed. I think that's a important distinction, but also if you're a manager and you have limited time to invest in your people, you want to invest in the people who are going to put in the effort.
Yep.
I don't know, maybe that sounds kind of mean, but
no, I think it's healthy though. I mean, you can't give to everything and you can't give to everyone. So give to where you're going to get your most ROI out of it.
Right. Okay. So chapter 8, breaking rules and building a team. I don't know if there's a whole lot in here other than the A player stuff I want to talk about. I did jot down that knowing less is an opportunity to do more, to question why things are done a certain way, and maybe adapt the processes. The goal is to connect people. But then he says this: the best way to reward the A players on your team is to surround them with other A players. Yep. Story time. The moment I realized I could no longer work with the digital marketing agency was when we were together as a leadership team and we were doing these ratings. And it was sort of along the lines of the Radical Candor, Kim Scott, if you remember that, where how much do they want it, and then how much skill or ability do they have? Basically, like people like working with them. Are they excellent at what they do? So there's like these two axes. And in the upper right, if you've got this grid, right, from 0 to 10 on the X and 0 to 10 on the Y, 5 on each axis is like right in the middle. So you can slot people on your team into one of these different areas. Are they great to work with, but they don't have skill? Are they really skilled, but they're jerks to work with? And then the upper right, obviously, is the people who are skilled at what they do, but they're also good to work with. And then if you've got like 8, 9, and 10, I think, like the very right corner of that, those are your A players. I busted my butt to be the best person to work with at that organization. But because I felt like, it's my job as the integrator to point out the stuff that's broken so we can fix it.
Mm-hmm.
I felt like all I was doing all the time was just sort of nagging people about, hey, we need to do this. We need to do this.
Mm-hmm.
So I remember being in that leadership meeting, and like we rated each other on the leadership team. And there was not a single person who rated me as an A player. And I was like, you got to be kidding me.
Yeah.
I'm the only A player here. What are you talking about?
Okay.
And because what's frustrating for an A player is feeling like you've got a governor put on you.
Mm-hmm.
That's the only way I can describe it. Like, you want to go faster, you want to do more, but you can physically feel like you are being held back.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought I was doing everything I could possibly do to bring other people along, to get them to the point where they were A players. And I learned a very valuable lesson that day. People who are not A players do not like A players because they push them further and harder than they want to go.
Yep.
And that was the moment where I was like, if you guys can't see me this way, I have no future here.
Yeah. Like my very informal and, goofy way of saying this is you can only bang your head off a brick wall so long before you even realize, like, I got to stop banging my head off this brick wall because I'm the only one getting hurt. The brick wall's fine, right? Like I'm the only one that's suffering for banging my head off this brick wall, but that's a tough one. Like, that's a tough meeting to be in, man.
Yeah. That was not great. But I guess the takeaway here is that you really do need to put your best people in a position where they can thrive.
Yeah.
If you have an A player and you don't do that, they will go somewhere else.
Absolutely.
The ones who are really skilled but lack the people skills, they're jerks to work with. They'll probably stick around, at least for a while until they get an offer that they can't refuse. And everyone just kind of puts up with it, but it just brings the whole organization down because no one wants to work with this person. So every time they have to, there's like this hesitancy and resistance, and you can't move fast that way. You can't do quality work that way.
I mean, he doesn't go into it in this much detail, but it really makes you think, like, after you've worked so long in different industries or you've worked so long in life, just in general, you realize how much people dynamics impacts the operations of an organization and or getting things done and or doing it at high quality or whatever it is. Like, if you can nail people dynamics, I mean, you're at least 75% of the way there. Right? Like and I think, like, okay, if I ever get a chance to lead where like a big part of my job is hiring, without a doubt, I'm hiring for, and I've seen other people do this. Diary of a CEO guy does this. I can't remember, Steve Barnett, what's his name? Like, I forget what his name is, but
I can't remember. I'm familiar with the podcast, but
yeah, like, so he's like, basically, we'll train you to do whatever we want you to do. I'm looking for people who fit in with the team. Like, I'm looking for people who will come in and they'll be a team player and they align with our culture. And I just think about this all the time. And like, I'm in the higher ed world. So like, we don't hire that way. We hire based on, like, we have a need. We need someone to teach this subject. We need someone to do research in this area. We need someone, whatever. And that's like, what we do is we try to go, well, who's the best personality we can get that meets these other criteria? And I think, man, are we doing it right? Like, I don't know if we're doing it right because we're hiring based on that skill and we're sacrificing a lot of times on the culture and the people side of it. So it's interesting.
Yeah. So you're talking about like the soft skills, the emotional intelligence piece, I think, which is part of the equation. And then the other part is the technical, the hard skills. And I think that's, you can even take that too far. So in order to be an A player, you do need to have technical hard skills. You have to be able to do the work at an excellent level. But yeah, people are always the problem and people are always the solution. Which is why you have to you have to fire fast, hire slow. It sounds terrible. Don't you care about the people? Yes, you do. Kim Scott talks about this in Radical Candor the best way possible. When you are letting somebody go because they're not a fit for your organization, you're actually doing them a favor. What? They're losing their job. How can that be a favor? They're not in the right position.
Yeah.
Let them get into the right position. It's not on you to fix everybody. And if you try to do that, you'll just burn yourself out. That's kind of the picture that I get as he's describing this. If you've got A players and they're not surrounded by A players, eventually that will just erode the effectiveness of the entire organization. And it's not a little bit. It's not like you're going to be 10% less effective. It's going to be like you're half as effective. You're 1/10 as effective. There's a compound effect that kicks in here. You really have to nail this.
Yeah.
And if you recognize that someone is not a right fit, it's an anchor. It's dragging the whole ship down. You can't move with that person on your team. So pay attention to the hiring process. Yeah, make sure you get the right people, or your best guess at the right person for the right role. But I feel like the big takeaway here is just prioritize that if you really want to build an excellent team, an excellent organization, prioritize that A player personality above everything else.
Yeah, I agree.
All right. Shall we talk about working with purpose and on purpose?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So this is chapter 9.
Yep.
And this one talks about how you can't be all things to all people. Multiple conflicting goals can force you to innovate. That's an interesting idea. I'm not sure how I feel about that, because I definitely see how you can take that too far and we're gonna achieve all these things. That's not really what it's saying. What it's really talking about is when you have multiple goals, you can find kind of the spot where they overlap, and that's where the innovation can come. It's not that you can do multiple things with excellence at the same time. Correct me if you think that's wrong, but that's kind of how I view that.
No, I agree. I agree with that. One of the things that stood out to me here in this one was he's talked about it a couple different times about how like culture and developing culture, and how the first part of the word culture is cult, and we often think about that as bad, but really it's like getting almost like fanatic about something. I'm trying to remember exactly how he worded it, but it's it's really pouring into something deeply. Then culture is caught, not taught. Here he's talking about how the language is how you create culture, the way you talk about things and what you have on the walls. So he'll talk about the fact that he would put their taglines or the things they were focused on up near the clock where everybody would look often. Like that was the place that people would look. And this is probably like, I know this is going to be a silly action item, and it's not going to happen between now and next episode. But I would like to think about, what's the sign that I put in the engineering lab? What's the sign that I put in CCU's, basement floor where our programs are, that communicates the culture we want these students to have? Because we have a lot of these like big long things that like don't fit neatly anywhere, but like, can I shrink it down to like, what is the thing that I really want them to take away? Like theirs were the things they cared about, at least at this point in the book, were education, passion, excellence, and hospitality. Like those were the things he calls out that they wanted to prioritize. And like, I'm thinking about like, what are the things that I want to put up there? What are the values we have as a CCU engineering program or a CCU science and engineering program? And I think that would be a good exercise for me to do. And it's something that would clearly communicate that to the students. So I think that's going to be my first official action item. But again, it's not going to happen by next episode.
I like that one a lot, because he talks about how you have to be able to name why your work matters. And that's really what that does. He also mentions that language is how you give intention to your intuition and share your vision with other people. Mm-hmm. So yeah, that's important. All right. Chapter 10.
Yep.
Okay. So chapter 10 is creating a culture of collaboration. I think this is where he brought in the beer guy that you were talking about earlier.
Yeah, this is where he unpacks ownership a lot more. Yeah.
Yeah. This is also where he talks about the coffee guy.
Yep.
So of course I wanted to talk about this.
Yeah.
I guess just a couple other things from this chapter that I jotted down, that success comes in cans, failures come in can'ts. And often the perfect moment to give someone more responsibility is before they are ready. Mm-hmm. I actually mentioned that to my wife the other day. We were having a conversation. She's basically like, "Oh, that's really good." Like, I didn't come up with it. It's from this book.
Yep.
But there was this, the story from this, at least the one that stood out to me, was that they had this great dinner and then they were brought this coffee at the end of it, and the coffee was meh. So kind of disappointing. After we had this great dinner, how could we not just have the best cup of coffee in the world? And so they hired someone to fix the coffee thing. And what they ended up doing was this guy who's in charge of the coffee goes and he gets Intelligentsia beans, which I love Intelligentsia.
Okay.
Good choice.
Okay. Okay.
There are other ones, but Intelligentsia is solid. And then that's one of the companies that we'll use when we make our coffee in the morning. We got the coffee robot, which is essentially an automated Chemex. That is one of the methods that they started using to brew the coffee, but they didn't just brew it this way. That's the thing. When you make pour over coffee, a lot of people will do it by hand simply because they love the ritual, but it also is pretty impressive if you're sitting there watching it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So if you go to a place where they serve pour over coffee and they have a machine that does it, I will walk in, I'll order the pour over and then be like, oh, that's kind of disappointing. They don't really care.
Yeah.
So the whole pour over process, though, is that you heat the water to the exact temperature, you grind the beans a certain way, and then the Chemex is like the hourglass style carafe. You put the filter in the top and then you pour the water over the grounds in a certain way so to maximize the extraction of the coffee as it drips down. There's another version of brewing that they mentioned, though, which is the siphon. What they would do is they would basically take a cart to the person's table and they would brew the coffee in front of them, which is really cool. But if you understand how a siphon works, this is that gives it so much more definition.
Okay.
Do you have any idea how a siphon coffee brewing method works? Okay.
No, I know Chemex stuff, but I don't know the siphon stuff.
So I was at a Blue Bottle Coffee in San Francisco once, and they had the ability to order a siphon coffee off the menu. So a friend of mine was there. He's also a coffee snob. And we're like, we want a siphon. The guy who's taking our order is like, okay. What they do is they put a burner at the bottom, and then the water like goes up a tube as it heats up, and it goes up to the top where it percolates in the coffee, and then they turn the burner off and it comes back down.
Okay.
It's insane. And if you think about it, like the whole idea behind the pour over is to have the water in the coffee for the ideal amount of time so it maximizes the extraction, right? But you can't over extract it, it gets bitter.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to, with a siphon, turn off the heat at the exact right moment, because it doesn't just all of a sudden start coming back down. It has to cool down.
Yeah.
So it's a really fiddly, no one in their right mind is ever going to make coffee this way process. Other than it's going to look really impressive.
Yeah. I mean, it's just that kind of stuff's what's all through this book, is where they take it to the 10th degree. Like they really do it. They really do it up. So, I like this principle here that they describe, where it's the win-win-win. It's win for the company, win for the employee, win for the customer. Like, how can you do that? And this is what I think is interesting about this book. Intermixed in these stories are these like really, I think, solid principles, less about like business and management, but more just about like, this is how you should live life, right? Like, can we find the win-win-win? Can we go try things? Can we like collaborate with people more? Can we give them more ownership? I just really like these principles. Like, I think they're really solid. And then what I think makes them even better is you, the reader, trying to figure out how do they apply to my world. Now, some people may not like that. They may be like, no, I wanted you to tell me how this could apply in worlds that aren't restaurants. But I actually like the idea of having to go, I wonder what that looks like for me. I wonder what it looks like for me. So it was a fun thought experiment to take these principles and try to put them into my world.
I think it would be impossible to have them be applied in specific scenarios. All he can do is talk about the examples from his experience in the restaurant world, and then you have to figure out how to do it. But there are some principles, I think, which we can use as like signposts here. So actually, let's go to the next chapter. I think we'll see some of that. So The next chapter 11, pushing toward excellence, right? I didn't skip one. Okay, yeah.
Yep,
chapter 11. Okay, so a couple things that I liked in this chapter were the phrase, you can't do everything perfectly, but you can do many things perfectly. I feel like that you can't do everything perfectly is sometimes thrown around as an excuse.
Yeah.
That should be what we're striving for, at least. The way you do anything is the way you do everything. I 100% get behind that as well. But then there's this story about Walt Disney and the Tiki Room. Have you been to the Tiki Room in Walt Disneyland? Or I think it's probably in Disney World too. But
if I have, it was when I was 10, and no, I don't remember any aspect of it.
Okay, apparently when I was there as a little kid, that was my favorite place. I just wanted to see the show in the Tiki Room over and over and over again.
Okay.
It's this like African hut with all these colorful birds and animals. It's all like the, what do you call it? It's like the very, very primitive version of automation.
Okay.
But they're all moving, they're all singing, and it's kind of just a little bit overwhelming if you're not ready for it.
Yeah.
But they're all, you're in this hut, and like all of these birds are around you singing, and it's been it's been around for a really, really long time. Like probably in the 80s is when they released it.
Okay.
And one of the details that calls out here is that Walt Disney, apparently when they were working on the Tiki Room, there's so much going on here that no one is really looking at any of these individual birds, but he is, and he's pointing out that, it doesn't look like the birds are breathing. They look like robots. And someone's like, well, they aren't breathing, and no one's that's not going to matter because there's literally thousands of these things popping off at the same time.
Yep.
And he says that people may not see it, but that people can feel perfection.
Yeah.
I mean, that's Walt Disney in a nutshell right there. But I have a very vivid picture in my head of that. And I think that's why when I was a little kid, I was blown away by it. I was actually there a couple of years ago with David Sparks and Chris Bailey. We went to the Tiki Room, and it was just as cool as I remember it.
Yeah.
Not just nostalgic. It's like when you recognize that this has been around for 40 years, pretty much. It's really impressive that they were able to pull this off. And the reason that everything in Walt Disney World Disneyland. I know that there's two camps there, Disney World versus Disneyland.
You stepped on a landmine there, buddy.
Yeah, Disneyland in particular, that was Walt's baby. So just so meticulous about everything that's in there. And it all adds up to a very magical experience.
Yep. Silent Wolf nailed it in the chat. He said it's animatronics is the word you were looking for.
Animatronics. That's it. Yeah.
No, so I like this principle, as you're getting at it, the aggregation of like the small things. And then when we build those up and we are perfect in as many of those as we can, we just, you almost like, what it would be like cross the threshold or cross the Rubicon, where it's like, you just lose track of, oh, this isn't real. Like I forgot this wasn't real. And this is why I think VR and AR has such a possibility, because if we can get that good enough, we lose the idea of like, oh shoot, that wasn't in a real world right there. Like I was in a fake world. I don't know if we can get there, and we definitely haven't gotten there yet, but I'm intrigued to see if it happens, if they can make that experience, as this author would put it, excellent enough to where we just lose reality. Like we lose track of reality.
Yeah. All right. Ready for chapter 12?
I am.
Okay. So chapter 12 is relationships are simple. Simple is hard.
Yep.
There's a couple things in here which we could probably have pretty lengthy discussions about. I'm trying to decide where I want to go. I guess I'll start with the easy one. Sarcasm is always the wrong method for serious communication. Yep. Also says that praise is affirmation, but criticism is investment.
I thought that was great.
I mean, yeah. Okay. So let's unpack that a little bit. What exactly does that mean?
Yeah. So basically, when you're praising somebody, it has the ability to just be too ethereal. Like, oh, okay, they said I did a good job. That doesn't, anybody can say I could do a good job, or like I hear that all the time or whatever it is. And they don't really like take it to heart, I think, if you will. But if you like come in and you say, hey, you did a really good job, that's really good, but you could improve it here, here, and here. Like, and you mean it in a way that's not like tearing them down. You mean it in a way that's like, I want to make this better. I want to help build you up. So Mike, I think about you and I, like we've had different things where, you've sent me something, or I've asked you for feedback on something. And instead of it just being like the hand wavy, like, this was amazing, like you don't ever like do anything. It's like, hey, this is really, really good. I think you got something going here. But did you think about this aspect of it? Did you think about like what the user is going to do here, or what the audience is going to think in this area? I think it makes that connection so much stronger, because it's like, oh, you actually care about me enough to say, did you think about, or I think it could be improved here. And I think that's what he means by this. And I think people want that, like whether they say they want it or not. Now, by no means do they want you to say like, everything you do is terrible and I think you should stop doing this at all. Like, nobody wants to be criticized in that way, where like you're just being put down. But criticized with caring is another way I would say it. I mean, you want to connect with people on a different level. Like, criticize them while you care about them, and I think they really do. I think they jump on board and they really want to be part of that relationship.
So the thing that comes to mind with this for me is parenting.
Yeah.
And that maybe makes it sound not as applicable or generalizable, but I think that's actually not true. The point being with parenting, this relationship is not going to disappear. This is a forever thing. So it's worth investing the extra time to work through the hard thing so that we can become better on the other side. And that is the part that most companies and organizations will not bother to do. The same companies and organizations that will throw around terms like, we're all a family here.
Yeah.
Until you're not, and then they decided that you aren't a good fit, even though you've gone above and beyond everything that they've asked you to do. And then they just were never clear about the expectations or whatever. There's so many reasons why things might be misaligned. And the most thoughtful thing you can do, I think, is take the extra time to make sure that everybody is clear. I've heard it said that clear is kind.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Right? If you're not clear, then the people in the organization are putting forth their best effort. They are trying to uphold their end of the bargain, but they can't guess. Like, if they don't know, that's not cool. They got to know what the expectations are. I don't know. That really impacted me, but I don't even really know why. I guess as I look to expand my team at some point, it's just something that I want to bring with me.
I liked their little phrase that he and his partner had, where basically if they said it's important to me.
Oh, that was great.
And they weren't allowed to throw it out like willy-nilly. Like they had to know that if I say this, I need you to relent. Like, I need you to take this to heart, because this is something that's really, really important to me. And like he describes it in different parts of the book, where he was like, and so-and-so said to me, this was important to me, so we did that thing, and it was like, I really like that idea of the relationship. It's like, hey, we have this agreement that if I come to you and I say like, this is important to me, I'm going to be really hurt if you push back too hard, kind of on that situation. I thought that was a good aspect of this chapter.
Absolutely. All right. Next chapter 13, leveraging affirmation. I don't have much story stuff to interject at this point in the book. I'm realizing it's all like the leadership principles.
Yeah.
But if I had to guess, leveraging affirmation, this is really probably where the ratings started to come in, and they got 3 stars and 4 stars, whatever. And instead of just taking all the credit for the success, recognizing other people who were involved in that. So don't take credit for someone else's work is one of the things that mentions here. But the big thing that messed me up from this chapter is make decisions based on hope, not based on fear.
Okay.
I shared a line with you in the pro show that kind of slapped me in the face on Wednesday last week. and I recognize that I've been doing this. I'm trying to hedge my bets and instead of just like committing to the thing. And what that basically guarantees is that everything's going to be mediocre.
Yep. Yeah.
I heard somebody at Craft and Commerce say something along the lines of expect every day to be the best day ever. And that sounds like unbridled optimism and like kind of corny who really talks that way.
Yep.
But I've been thinking about that. And I realized that I spend most of my days playing defense instead of playing offense.
Yeah.
And I just like last night I was thinking to myself as I'm laying there in bed, what if tomorrow I viewed like whatever happens next is going to make this day the best day ever.
Yeah. It's so hard though, because you're so ingrained in the way you've been doing things.
Yep.
Now just be like, okay, I'm gonna just flip this switch and every day, like we're gonna figure out how to make it better than the last day. And like I'm not being a pessimist here. I'm just saying you got to give yourself a ramp to like figure this out.
Yeah,
because it's not
true.
just a one day change.
It's not a one day change, but I do think that the net result is if I'm able to do that more often than not, it does have a net positive effect on my life.
Yeah, it does. Yeah.
I kind of think there's an element of attraction there where if I really believe that I'm going to do things without being anchored in fear and what could go wrong, I'll probably try a few things that I wouldn't have tried previously. I might put myself in positions I wouldn't have put myself in previously, and that probably produces some new outcomes that weren't possible for me as long as I was keeping my world small. So I recognize that even if it doesn't have a completely transformational effect on my life, it probably is more positive just in my perspective. Like everything else could stay the same.
Yep.
But I tend to be a bit of a pessimist, to be honest. And I'm always looking for reasons why things won't work as opposed to why they might.
This is smelling awfully similar to an action item, Mike. I mean, I'm not gonna put one in your camp, but I'm getting that whiff of action item. So just think about it.
Well, I do have an action item, but it's not here yet.
Okay.
You're right. I probably could fashion some sort of action item off of this. I will share one other story that happened at Craft and Commerce, though. There's a guy named Doc Williams who I connected with at Sponsor Games, and we kind of saw each other a couple different times from across the room. We're like, hey, we got to talk later, And so eventually he shows up at this YouTube meetup that I'm at, and we finally get a chance to connect. And so he's asking me questions about how things have been going since Sponsor Games. How's my business doing? Well, what am I working on? And so he kind of launches into this impromptu coaching session. He's like, oh, what's your numbers for this, the other thing? So he's writing stuff down. And he's like, okay. So you should do this, and then you should do this, and you should do this. And then he stops and he's like, do you have your laptop with you? And I'm like, yes. He's like, boy, get out that laptop. We're doing this right now.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's awesome.
So he basically, like, as I'm talking through stuff, he made a comment like, you got green light after green light after green light. You just got to go for it.
Yeah.
And so I recognize that I do tend to overthink things and, well, I got to figure this out and figure this out. Like, no, you don't. Just do stuff.
Yeah. You need to hire, not so in this book, they talk about the Dreamweaver. You need to hire the cattle.
Yeah.
Right. The person who, when you wake up in the morning, they just poke you and they say, do the thing. Right. And then like at 11 a.m., they're like, did you do the thing? And if not, they poke you again. Right. Like they do the thing.
Dreamweavers and cattle prods. I like that.
Oh,
okay. I don't have anything else from this chapter. Do you?
The only other thing I wrote down, and I didn't even write down the full quote because it was long, but there's an interesting Calvin Coolidge quote on persistence here that I really liked. So I wrote it down here to look it back up, but that's all. So.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So chapter 14 then is restoring balance to the force. Just kidding.
Yes.
This one, I don't know. I didn't have a whole lot here. I guess I jotted down a couple things. Do less and do it well. Mm-hmm. Slow down to speed up. I mean, these are concepts that I've heard before. So they didn't really land as powerfully when he's talking about them. But whatever. Being able to ask for help is a display of strength and confidence, but that's about it.
Yeah. The biggest one I got out of this was what refills my tank. It's like, have I thought critically about what refills my tank? Because, I mean, you're in a similar boat. Like, we're going between work and family stuff and all these other things. Do I take the time to refill my tank? And how do I refill my tank? And have I thought about that? Because I know, or at least I have an idea of what used to refill my tank. Is that working right now? Is it working in this season? And I think that was the powerful thing that I got out of this, was that might have changed. The thing that worked a year ago or 2 years ago or 5 years ago may not be doing that same thing that it did then. And that's why, like, I'm maybe feeling a little bit overwhelmed, or I'm feeling a little bit stressed out, or whatever it might be. So that was the one that got me, is what best refills my tank, and have I thought about that lately?
That's good. All right, next chapter is the best offense is offense.
Yep.
I guess this is a play on words from like the best defense is offense,
the best
or something
offense
like
is
that.
A good defense. That's what they would say, is the best offense is a good defense.
Okay.
Yeah.
I always get that mixed up.
Yeah.
So yeah, I kind of alluded to this a little bit earlier. I recognize I tend to play a lot of defense. And so this chapter, the thing that really stood out to me was that adversity is a terrible thing to waste, is how he put it. I think that was, again, attributed to his dad. His dad sounds like a pretty brilliant guy.
Yeah. I thought the same thing. I was like, man, this dad had some wise sayings here.
Yep. And play offense even when you're down. So even if things aren't looking great, the tendency is batten down the hatches and just try to, endure the thing. But I actually think this is great advice for me for where I'm at, is when you're in the moment of adversity, that's typically when you are most willing to change things up. So adversity forces you to look at things differently, probably incentivizes you, creates more motivation than you might have otherwise. And so that's what he means by it's a terrible thing to waste. Take advantage of the fact that you find yourself in that state, but also you need to have the long view, recognize that you're playing the long game in order for that not to completely destroy you, because that's a pretty stressful place to live if you're doing it constantly.
Yeah. The main one I got out of here was perspective has an expiration date, and that's the importance of journaling. And I was like, oh, okay, this journaling thing keeps popping back up. And I agree with that. Like, my perspective yesterday is not my perspective today. It's going to change. So, I'm not going to go as far as to say I'm going to make it an action item, but I do think I should be journaling more and more consistently, and I'm not. So I'm going to think about that. I just don't know what it's going to manifest into.
Journaling for the win. All right, chapter 16, earning informality. I don't know that I have much here.
I don't either.
Informality is something you earn, and don't just be attentive, but pay attention. Those are the two things that I jotted down. Of those, I think that don't just be attentive, pay attention. That's the important one, because that sort of ties into the idea of the Dreamweaver. So you mentioned the story of the New York City hot dog.
Mm-hmm.
I think that probably comes from somewhere around this chapter, because what the Dreamweaver title is basically you're paying attention to everything that the guest is doing. You're doing research on the guest before they get there, and you're trying to find all the little ways that you can blow their minds while they are there at the restaurant, which I think is a pretty cool job title. And the don't just be attentive means don't just like be right there when they have a question or able to offer some sort of service, but look for the little places where you can inject some surprise and delight. Those aren't going to be the things that the customer tells you about. Those are going to be the things that you have to notice on your own.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like that they talk about a strategy is figure out who the highest performers are, study them, and then emulate that. And I was like, that's a good strategy for, approaching getting better at something, like improving at something, is who are the people that are doing the thing I want to do and doing it well, and then how do I essentially copy what they're doing. So other than that, I didn't have very much from chapter 16.
All right. Chapter 17, getting down there. This one is learning to be unreasonable. There's a question that is posed at the top of, at the beginning of this chapter, which has been messing me up. What would you attempt if you knew you could not fail?
I wrote it down too. It's messing me up.
Did you?
Too, Mike? Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, especially in the situation that he describes, when you're surrounded with yourself with talented people, there's nothing more powerful than a collective decision. I don't have a huge team of people that I'm rallying around a cause, but still, I think that my own limiting beliefs hold me back quite a bit. One other thing from this chapter is he asks the question, what's the hospitality solution to this problem? That is contributing to my action item, which we will get to in the next chapter.
Okay.
I have one.
Okay. Okay.
But I like that framing. If I were to put it a different way, what's the most generous way to solve this problem?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Because I do want to be a generous person. I do want to treat everyone like a VIP. And there are little ways that you can do that. So this is actually the place in the book where he talks about that ticketless coat check, which is really just you pay super close attention to everything that the guest is doing the entire time that they're with you. And this is also, to your point earlier about hiring good people and then just letting them take ownership of it. That's what they did with this ticketless coat check. It's like, I want to do this thing. You figure out how to do it.
Yeah. Yeah. I that first question is my driver out of this one is what would you attempt to do if you knew you could have failed? And I think the biggest problem I have with it is like, I defeat the question mentally before I finish the question, right? Like, well, if I knew I couldn't fail, that's not even realistic. So, I mean, get out of here with your silly question. But I think that's just like a protective mechanism because I don't want to think about like what I would actually attempt to do if I really thought I couldn't fail. Like, I think I'm just trying to not address the full question. I mean, this kind of gets to one of my struggles with the book, which I'll unpack more when we get to style and rating. But like, Unreasonable seems so much more tangible in a fine dining situation where people are spending like thousands and thousands of dollars on the meal that you're giving them. And it's like, in the normie world where we're not doing that, what is the version of Unreasonable that makes sense and is accessible to all these people? And I just don't know, like, I don't know how to cross that divide. And I'm having trouble with that, with like bringing it down to the everyday person level, not the fine dining experience level. So I really don't know what to do with that. So I'm getting like conflicted here as I'm reading the book. I'm getting conflicted here about how much does this actually relate? And I want it to relate a lot. Like, I really want it to come into the modern everyday world. And I just don't know. I don't know how much it does. So that's kind of where I'm at in chapter 17.
All right. Well, let's continue that, but move to this next chapter.
Mm-hmm.
So chapter 18 is improvisational hospitality, because this is where my action item comes from. I've been teasing this for far too long.
Okay.
And it's directly relevant to what you just described, which is really find the opportunities for unreasonable hospitality in my business.
Mm-hmm.
How do I do that if I'm not in the restaurant business and I'm not able to go out on the street corner and buy a New York City hot dog and plate it in a 4-star restaurant because I heard somebody mention it? I don't know exactly, but I think the principle here. So in this chapter, they talk about legend, right? So legend is a story made possible by the restaurant. There was a story about someone saying what they really needed was $1 million investment for their business, right? So they went and they got 10 $100,000 bars, put them in a sack and put on the guy's plate when he went to the restroom or something.
Yep.
That's, I mean, funny, but also like, that's a story. That's pretty cool. And the point here that they make is that the value of a gift isn't about what went into giving it, but how the person receiving it feels. It's the thought that counts, essentially. It's not the lavishness of the gift, it's the pricelessness.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So how can I do this in my business? I have no idea, but I am determined to figure it out.
Yeah.
So I just, I know that there are all these technological tools that people use in traditional marketing methods that kind of drive me crazy. If you sign up for a webinar, they'll ask for your phone number and they'll text you a couple of times just to make sure that you aren't late to the webinar. I hate getting those text messages. But what if, someone joins my community and they go through, they take an onboarding survey and they answer all these questions, and I'm able to take those responses and find some way to just blow their minds with something that they said there. So I just, as an example, off the top of my head, literally right now, what if someone who comes into the library gets a personalized book recommendation, and instead of just being, hey, you should read this book, it's like a video that I've recorded that gets sent to them. Those little things. So one of the ways I think I probably do this a little bit already is like with the Creator Business Accelerator stuff, people will post, this is my sales page, or this is my thing that I'm working on, and I will actually record a feedback video. I mean, I don't just type out, this is what I would change. I do like a teardown sort of a thing for them, and people love that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
I do it because it's actually faster for me to do it that way. Or that's how I stumbled into it. But once I realized that people really like that, it's like, well, obviously I should do more of that. So I know that there are places that I just haven't explored where I can do that sort of stuff with the online community that I run. But I want to find some more before we record next.
Well, and one of the things I wrote down as I'm reading this is I said they've turned fine dining into custom experience dining. And like I think about like how could you take most of the interactions you have with people, not you, but like the collective you, and how could you turn that into custom experiences with others? So like I think about it with my students. How could I make sure that, before the end of their first year, they have a story that says, I remember this about interacting with, Cory Hickson, kind of a thing. It's like, what would that look like? How could I do that? And I don't think it's a one size fits all thing. It's like I've got to be intentional about every student and how I'm interacting with every student and how I'm making that experience. And then it's like, well, do I do that for the sophomore year as well? And the junior year as well? And the senior year as well? And then I immediately start to get overwhelmed and go, oh, like this is a lot. Like, I don't know how to do all this. But I really think there is something to those legend ideas, these improvisational experiences that really resonate with people and they stick with people. How can I do more of those? What would those look like? I don't know. Like it's something I want to do, and I don't know how to do it. And I think we're gonna have to work hard to figure out how to do it, Mike.
Important work, though.
It is. Yeah, it is.
All right. Almost there. Chapter 19 is scaling a culture. And my notes here have nothing to do with scaling a culture.
Yeah, mine don't either.
The creativity stuff is the stuff that stood out to me here. So no one knows what they're doing before they do it. Creativity is a practice. I mean, That's not an original idea. I think it actually came from Seth Godin.
Seth Godin. Yep, Seth Godin.
Yeah, but the one thing that, again, not new, but I like the way that he phrased it is you can't use up creativity. The more you use, the more you have. And that is something that's been top of mind for me because I don't think I've mentioned this anywhere, Cory. So breaking news, I am building a creativity flywheel app.
Oh, very nice.
Yeah. We talked a little bit, I think maybe in the last pro show, about I want to help people be more creative. I don't just want them to understand the technical features of Obsidian, but actually use it to write more, create more. Really, writing is the thing. Whether you have a YouTube channel, podcast, like the basis of all of it is writing. That's how you develop your ideas, I think. So studio.com is we're sort of like a masterclass alternative.
Okay.
And they've got a group going through this cohort. I'm in Jay Klaus's community, and we're working on building this stuff. I think that's all I can really say about it right now. but it should be available at some point in the near future. So looking forward to sharing more details about it. But the whole idea is that with traditional courses, you have people watch a video, they go to the next video, eventually they stop watching videos, they haven't done any of the stuff, there's no transformation. So the idea is, how can you get them to consistently take action and build momentum, which fits perfectly with this creativity flywheel idea that I've been noodling on for quite a while, and some intellectual property that I happen to have on this already. So yeah, I'm building this out, and I think it's going to be pretty cool.
Yeah, that's great. Keep us updated on the status of that and how it progresses.
Will do. Anything else from chapter 19 for you?
No, I mean, like just little things, but creativity was the one that stood out to me here. I mean, nothing major, nothing to write home about. Like I have a note here: with enough drops, even the strongest rock will erode. That's basically like, okay, yeah, if you beat people up long enough, they're gonna break down. Or the best idea in the world,
true.
If you pick at it, it's gonna break away. But other than that, it's just really a thing here, a thing there, nothing really worth talking about. So I'm ready to go to 20.
All right, chapter 20, the last official chapter in the book, is back to basics. And this is the culmination of the story where they finally get the number one rated restaurant in the world. And none of my notes really pertain to that.
Yep.
So things I jotted down: start with what you want to achieve instead of limiting yourself by what's realistic or sustainable. Kind of ties to my idea of how do I interject unreasonable hospitality into my business. Sometimes magic is just someone spending more time on something than anyone might reasonably expect. That, I think, is the profound one. It wasn't this chapter, I don't think, but there was a point near the end of the book where they're talking about this magic trick that they're going to do at the table for people, and they've started by contacting Theory 11, which makes these really nice playing cards, and they're just going to have a custom deck of cards. But then they actually designed like a whole custom magic trick supposedly for this thing, and they started with, well, this is what the end result is going to be. And then Will's like, okay, that's great. How is that going to happen? They're like, I don't know, but we'll figure it out.
Yep.
That's the perspective that ultimately I think is worth stealing here.
Yeah. He doubles down on run toward what you want and not away from what you don't. And I think that's a guiding principle for me right now at this stage in my life, is like, what do I want to be the case? What do I want to exist? What are the things that aren't out there that I want to create, as opposed to like, how do I get out of the things that I'm not a big fan of right now? Or how do I move and avoid these other things? I think that's a huge principle for me right now that I want to reflect on more. This gets to the journaling idea. Like, I need to journal more about this stuff. I need to think in writing more about this stuff to break away from it. So I think that's where I'm at on chapter 20, but I agree with you. It's kind of pieces of the story, or sorry, not even the story, pieces of things as you go. Is this where he talks about the fact, oh, no, it's the next one. So I'll wait for the next one. Let's go to the epilogue.
All right. So yeah, two other parts of the book I want to touch on real briefly. So the epilogue is basically how they got to the number one restaurant in the world in the previous chapter, and now they're talking about how their partnership fell apart.
Yep.
So they describe we decided we're going to part ways. We don't want to blow everything up. So we're trying to figure out who's going to get what in this messy divorce. And it sounds like Will, basically the author, walked away from the whole thing because he mentions that instead of dividing it up, he wanted it all to stay intact. They recognize that if they broke it apart, it would lose the magic.
Yep.
So that's pretty cool if you're willing to have that perspective where it's not about what I can get, but it's really about what's best for all the people who are part of this thing that we've built. And I don't know that I would be able to make the same decision, but I hope that I would.
Well, and I want to know, I left that story going, I want to know if there are more details to this, because it's said as, and correct me if I'm wrong, Mike, as we recap this, it's said as basically like he decided to walk away, but like, did he walk away with like a gigantic check? Did he walk away with,
Yeah, I don't know.
Was there a parachute here as he walked away? Like, it wasn't like as quite a bad of a walk, but like, I also think that is a form of unreasonable hospitality. And I don't know if he made that connection there explicitly or if I made it in the background, but not many people would be willing to walk away from that, and they would fight tooth and nail, and like they would probably sacrifice all that you've built in that walking away process. And if he didn't, and if he really took one for the team on that, man, what a form of unreasonable hospitality that is. So
yeah,
I want to know more details. That's my walk away from that. That was what I wanted to talk about. So like, did we talk about the fact that he left the company yet? But it was in the epilogue. So
yeah,
so there
it was
you
in
go.
the epilogue. And then the last part is the I appreciate you chapter. And this is really just him thanking a bunch of people.
Yeah.
But there were a couple of things that stood out to me from this.
Okay.
One is that he was coached by Simon Sinek. That's cool.
Yeah, I agree.
I love Simon Sinek. And it's kind of interesting because I know him from the books that he's written, in particular, Leaders Eat Last. That one was really impactful for me. But I would argue that lately, like the last couple of years, it seems like his whole persona is sort of like the optimist. I think he's even got a brand called The Optimist.
Okay.
Bags and things that he's designed. I see the Instagram ads that show up.
Okay.
And then the last line of the book here also I really liked, which is he's thanking his wife and his daughter. I love you blindly, unreasonably, and without end.
Yep.
That's a beautiful way to finish it.
Yep. I didn't have anything from the appreciate you section. One of the things that I thought about as I'm reading this, man, the restaurant world is hard. Like, that is a hard life. Like, I think about like the sacrifices this guy made to become the #1 restaurant, or just to get, the different ratings from the New York Times or the ratings from, whatever rater was coming, the Michelin star person or whatever it was. I was like, man, this is a terribly hard and stressful life. Like, I probably would not be able to cut it in that environment.
No.
I don't think I'd be able to hang.
Me either.
Yeah.
100%. All right. Action items. Well, I've just got the one that I mentioned earlier where I want to think about how I can interject unreasonable hospitality into my creator business. You had one. What's the sign I put in the engineering lab that communicates the culture? Anything else?
No, I think that's good for now. I don't think I'm going to be able to actually accomplish anything between now and next episode, and nothing's a high enough priority, I don't think, either.
Okay. Then let's go to style and rating. So I really like this book, and I think that even if you have zero interest in the restaurant world, this is one that you absolutely should read.
Mm-hmm.
There are a few books that in the history of Bookworm where the core idea is so powerful and so generalizable that you're like, yes, blanket recommendation. In the pro show, I talked about how I got to actually ask James Clear, author of Atomic Habits, a question. That would be another one I think that is like blanket recommendation. Everyone should read this. As I'm thinking about writing my own book, I have all sorts of questions about how you land on something that is so important and powerful like that. Because it's not just, habits is important or hospitality is important, but it's the whole spin that you put on it that amplifies it in a specific way. That part is fascinating to me. Unreasonable Hospitality is one of those books that I've had so many people as they see me reading this, oh, I read that, or even before I picked it up, they're like, oh yeah, I read that. People I just would not expect to have read a Bookworm book. Like, oh yeah, I read Unreasonable Hospitality. So the stories in here are amazing. Will is a really good writer. There's a lot of just general wisdom. And what I really appreciate about this one is sort of the humility with which he presents this stuff. It would have been very easy to just like not give credit to his dad for all of these sayings that were imparted. I mean, at some point you can toot your own horn. You got the restaurant to be named the best restaurant in the world. So you can internalize this stuff, but again, like it shouldn't be a surprise. He talked about you don't want to take the credit for somebody else doing a thing, and just feels very authentic. And he practices what he's preaching in this particular book. Yeah, I think everybody should pick this one up. I'm a little bit nervous. I was really nervous to record the episode, and I still am a little bit nervous that the magic of the book doesn't come through in a conversation about it. You have to go to the source. Yeah. So don't do a Blinkist. I guess this probably would be a pretty good candidate for an audiobook. Mm-hmm. There's going to be a few nuggets that'll jump out to you. I don't think you need to jot down all the details from all the stories, but the stories are the important thing here. They really do a great job of illustrating the point. I was thinking about this. If this book had been written, Unreasonable Hospitality, and all the stories came from a different industry, do you think it's as effective? All of the same principles, all of the same, like I got this from my dad, but it doesn't come from the quote unquote hospitality industry. Mm-hmm. Does it hit the same way?
I don't know if you really want me to answer that or not. I don't know. I think it could, but I only think there's like 2 or 3 different worlds where this book actually works. Like different examples or stories where this actually works. It just fit so well. I mean, it really did fit so well.
Yeah. So here's my takeaway from that. I don't think it does. I think this is the perfect alignment here, but I also think that it's very, I'm not going to say easy to translate. Like you walk away, oh yeah, there's 100 different things I can do to add Unreasonable Hospitality, but you at least are inspired to find the places where it's possible. Mm-hmm. It doesn't feel like an impossible task. It feels like, yeah, let's go figure this out. Yep. So it translates very well from the restaurant world to whatever industry you happen to be in, however you can possibly think to apply this principle. He does a good enough job breaking it down that I think it's absolutely possible. So I don't know how you rate this not a 5-star book. I don't know what I can nitpick from this. I guess the only other thing would be if you absolutely are not interested in the restaurant world and the whole idea of Unreasonable Hospitality just isn't your cup of tea. But it's exactly what it says on the tin. Mm-hmm. Maybe that's why I was a little bit resistant to reading this one for a while. Like I actually have 2 copies of this book. I bought it 2 separate times. And I didn't even realize that I had it before it came on my radar again with that Nathan Barry Show episode. And I was like, oh, I really like these guys. We should look into this. I think if you look at it, you're like Unreasonable Hospitality. Oh, that's just the restaurant stuff. I don't know if there's anything in it for me. That's the only reason why someone I think would not benefit from picking this up. But that was me. So I would encourage you to push through that and read it anyways. I'm going to rate this 5 stars.
Yeah. So, I mean, I told you earlier in the recording that, I mean, I wasn't like, I don't relate to fine dining, right? Like, I look at a fine dining restaurant and think that place is not for me. This guy lives it. Like he lived in it. That's his world. That's where he, what's the phrase? Cut his teeth. Is that the phrase?
Yeah, I think so.
So it's like, I mean, he grew up in it and all that stuff. That said, they're interesting stories. Right, like really interesting stories like, oh, well, we had this reviewer come in and this happened, or this thing happened with the chef and we had to figure that out, or they wanted to do this other thing and we couldn't do it, at the Museum of Modern Art or whatever it might be. And I was like, they're all incredibly fascinating, like very just interesting stories on their own. Like, oh, that's pretty cool. Oh, that's pretty cool. We traveled around the world and tasted all the fine foods and we tried to figure out how do we bring those back in and what do we do with those? So like, I don't relate to that at all. I don't ever care or want to even really eat at one of those restaurants. They're not that exciting to me. Like, that's just not who I am. But the stories are really good. And it was like a really, the best way I can describe it is it was a fun read. Like it was actually fun to hear him tell the stories of him going through all of this stuff and all the processes he went through. Then you add on to it the leadership lessons, the hospitality lessons, the experience making, and the Dreamweaver stuff, and the way they enacted some of these things to modify and change the restaurant or their workers' experiences or their coworkers' experiences or whatever it might be. And like, I hate to call it icing on the cake, but it was 100% like, these are really good too. His dad taught me, my dad taught me this, or this person taught me this, or I learned this thing from somebody else. And those were really good too. So, I mean, you can hear it as I'm describing it. This book was just really good. Like, that's all there is to it. If I'm going to nitpick anything, the titles of the chapters don't make much sense to me, right? Like, but I am 100% nitpicking. It just doesn't make sense to me. You got to title some chapters, then you got to fill it out with stuff. But like, you could have just said chapter 1, chapter 2, chapter 3, and not titled them at all. And I'd have gotten just as much out of this book. I actually stopped paying attention to the titles of the chapters, and I stopped writing them down because I was like, this doesn't help me at all. Like, I don't get anything out of this. But like, that is the nitpickiest of nitpicky things ever. It's written well. It makes sense. It's clean. It was fun to read. And it added some like business management, like life lesson kind of ideas to it. It's easily a 5-star book, like easily a 5-star book. I would recommend it to people for both. You want to hear some good stories? Read this book. You want to get some business management leadership principles? Read this book. You want to do both? Definitely read this book, right? Like, I mean, that's just the way I would do it. So without a doubt, I would recommend this to other people to read. And I think it was a great pick, Mike. So I'm excited that you picked it, and I'm glad to have read it.
Awesome. Well, thank you to the Bookworm listener who actually recommended this. They didn't use their real name when they submitted it, but this was not a Mike Schmitz inspired selection. This was actually a recommendation from somebody a long time ago. So thanks for reading it with me. Let's put Unreasonable Hospitality on the shelf. What's next, Cory?
Okay, this next book, Mike and I talked about it, when we're figuring out our show, and he helped me out because I'm interested in this book. It's called The Book of Elon, and it's about Elon Musk. And it's basically like, what can we learn, at least the way I understand it to be so far, what can we learn from Elon Musk and about Elon Musk's life and about the way he's run companies and the way he's done different things. And it's from a guy named Eric Jorgensen. And he was the guy, Mike, if I'm right, who wrote the Almanac of Naval
Ravikant.
Ravikant, okay? Which Mike
Do you know who Naval Ravikant is?
I don't. Like, I've heard of the book, but I've never read it. And you said it was a great book, but I've not. Who is he?
He's a angel investor. So
okay.
Like big in the tech space, at Naval, I think on Twitter back in the day, and sort of was one of those Twitter philosophers who was always sharing really profound things in his threads and stuff like that. So yeah, the Almanac of Naval Ravikant, which is now on Authors Equity, by the way.
Okay, very cool. Very cool. Yeah, that's awesome.
So yeah, Eric Jorgensen helped put that together, and yeah, he's doing the same thing with this one.
Yeah. So I mean, so he's got street cred, right? Because he's got a good one under his belt already. And I was like, well, this guy's super popular. I mean, he's all over the place. I mean, he has the ability to like say a thing or tweet a thing or whatever it is, and like markets change, right? Like, I mean, this is the guy who wants to like put people on the moon. I was like, I don't know if it's gonna be any good or not. I don't know if I'm gonna agree or disagree with this. I think it seems pretty interesting. And Mike was like, yeah, I'm on board. Like, let's do this. I trust Eric Jorgensen to do this. So we're gonna read the Book of Elon. It's a little bit longer than what we normally do for Bookworm, but that's okay. And we're going to see what we can learn from the life and sayings of Elon Musk and see what we can take away from there. So that's our next one. Mike, how about the one after that?
Actually, before I share mine, just real quickly, I remember hearing Jim Rohn say that you need to study both ends of the spectrum, not just the political spectrum, but like, be like these people, don't be like these people.
Yep.
So that's my approach going into this, is even if I'm like, Elon is a complete jerk and I want nothing to do with him, I'm going to at least learn what not to do.
Yep. And I'm a clean slate right now. Like, all I know is the public personality of Elon Musk.
Yeah.
And he's been pretty successful at some company stuff, right? So
right.
I'm intrigued to see what we can learn from this.
So yeah, we're going to keep the good stuff and spit out the sticks.
Yeah, exactly.
After that, we are going to read a book which just came on my radar, by somebody who I've been familiar with for a long time, but I met when I was in Boise not too long ago, Steve Kamb. So Steve Kamb is the guy behind Nerd Fitness back in the day, and he's written a book, How to Try Again. He showed up to Craft and Commerce. His book actually is released the Tuesday after the conference ends. So the day after we record this. I don't have it. Well, I do have it in my hands because he gave it to people at the conference. But it's not available until tomorrow as we record this.
Okay.
Haven't looked at it yet, but just a super nice guy. And the book seems like it's the right fit for Bookworm. Kind of talking about, when life lifes you, when you're in the middle of all this chaos and turmoil, like how do you make sense of it all, gain your footing, and then move forward. He was walking around the conference with the book cover on a t-shirt and then like a colorful arrow pointing to it and then a phrase that said, "I wrote this." So he had that t-shirt on every single day so people could find him, and he was signing the book and stuff like that. But just a super cool guy. And I think it'll be a fun read. Some of the blurbs on the book, I don't have the book in front of me, but they were pretty big names for like the types of books that we've read on Bookworm before. So even though this is a brand new book to me, I think it's going to be a pretty decent fit.
Wonderful.
But thank you for humoring me while we read a book from someone that I just met.
Oh, of course. Yeah, absolutely.
All right. If you are reading along with us, you're going to want to pick up that one. If you want to support the show, we would love for you to do so. You can support the show by going to bookworm.fm/pro. $7 a month gets you a longer ad-free pro show. So before we get into the meat of the book, we have a pro topic that we talk about. In today's pro topic, I've alluded to it a couple of times. I got to attend a mastermind before Craft and Commerce, talked about my Craft and Commerce experience, but specifically the interaction that I had with James Clear on how he uses AI in his writing process. That was a great conversation. And so Cory and I talked a little bit about that. We've also got a bootleg recording. So those get published right after we record this in person. And that usually is about a week or two before the episode goes live. A little bit shorter time frame this time around because I had some travel. There's also a 4K wallpaper, access to my reading masterclass that I did, which is about 3 hours of how to get more out of the books that you read. And that is all available for $7 a month. Again, bookworm.fm/pro if you want to help support the show. Thank you to all the awesome people who help us keep the lights on.
If you're reading along with us, pick up The Book of Elon, A Guide to Purpose and Success, and we will talk to you next time.